So Luke Brooks informs the West Tigers that he plans to leave the club at the end of the season. A 2-year extension was on the table, but on Sunday he told Benji Marshall that he won't be taking up the deal. So here we go, mate. Here comes the Luke Brooks merry-go-round. What can you see playing out here?
Well, Matty, if you tell a club that I won't be here next year, then you've obviously got another club. Right? There's something else. You don't actually say, well, see you later, and then go and test yourself on the market. In my opinion, that you know exactly where you're going. Now, the two favourites, the two that make sense, like the Dogs, they're looking for a half, someone who can steer them around steer them around the park. At the moment, Burton's in there, doing a good job, Burton. But he's not a natural 7. He's the one that I think where I'm suspecting he'll land will be Newcastle, and I say that with zero inside knowledge, but why it makes sense. In the previous 2 years, Newcastle was certain that he was about to go up there, that he was going to be released from the Tigers, he was going to go up to Newcastle. It was only that the decision late to bring Sheens in, and Sheens said, no, we're not letting him go, that he actually stayed. Newcastle were that certain, if you remember, they let Mitchell Pearce go to France, and then were left sort of empty-handed. Now, why it makes sense, apart from all of that, is that the Ponga experiment at 6 hasn't worked. Okay, so they're in the market for a top-line half, and Ponga goes back to fullback. At the moment, they've got the combination of Gamble and Hastings. Gamble, I probably look at him as mainly like a 14. You can play, be a lightweight player who operates through the middle a little bit, as like people like Radley and so on and so forth. So they need a half, and with what we've seen the last couple of seasons, with the Knights believing they're going to get Brooks, I think he'll be in Newcastle. So
Hastings and Brooks to form your halves combination. Ponga stays back at fullback. Perhaps they look to utilise Gamble in a different sort of way. What about Lachie Miller in all of that?
Yeah, I know. I know. See, this is the thing. Unfairly on Miller, is that when this all went on and when they made the decision, right, we're going to move Ponga to 6. We're going to need a 1. And went out and got Lachie. And he's a terrific player, Lachie Miller. So they've got a decision to make. Lachie, does Lachie take that 14 role, or does Lachie start to look to go somewhere else? Because mate, there'll be a number of clubs that'd be really interested in taking him on board.
Yeah, might be a jack of all trades, getting shuffled around from club to club. Could just be that is the kind of career that's ahead of him.
And see, there's a lot of talk at the moment with Brooks in England. I'd fall over shocked, because Brooks would only go to England for a change of lifestyle, a change of life, because the money has gone out of the game in England. You don't go to England to earn more than $500,000 a year anymore. The money just isn't in the game.
So he's not going to get the money you would assume, obviously, that he's on at the moment. The $1 million mark money is gone. But it does then pose a question, and we don't know where he's going to go, right? But it does pose the question, then what about the Tigers? What do the Tigers do with the Luke Brooks hole? Why haven't they managed to keep Luke Brooks when they've said that they want to? They've got the offer in front of him, and which way do they start to look? I mean, you just mentioned a name there that probably doesn't fall into Tigers territory, probably falls back into Roosters territory, of Mitchell Pearce. I mean,
well, that's right. Well, that's right. Mitchell's coming back. Yeah. We're literally back for the Roosters to have that final season with him in a 14 role. Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. This is interesting, Matty, because under Sheens and Benji, Brooks is suddenly playing the best football of his career.
Yeah.
And the question would be, well, why then have you found your best football under a certain coach and you're going to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't work that out. I mean, look. As I said, he's told he hasn't said to the Tigers, no, not enough. He's told them, no, I'll be going elsewhere. Which, again, comes back to the fact that I just believe that he knows where he's going. But it'll be interesting if Sheens can convince the recruitment to up their offer. I mean, this is the other thing, Matty. I'm starting to read stories about how, Sheensy's offside with certain members of the board and all that. I don't know exactly what to believe, but I think there's a little bit going on behind the scenes.
Okay. So if he's told them that he's He's not prepared to take that offer that's on the table. He said to them, I'm not going to be here next year. And I agree with you. I don't think you say that stuff unless you've got somewhere to go, right? Mm-hmm. But if the Tigers want to keep him and they can throw more money at him, but do you want a player at a club who's already said to you, I'm moving on? I mean, it's a professional sport and weird things can happen. So do the Tigers now sit down and go, righto, which way do we look at it here? Is it a money issue, or do we need to make him happy, or is there somebody else that we can move on? Do you think it's the latter?
Matty, I just don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if I don't know. Like if Luke was still struggling with his football, then I would say that Lukey's make a decision to go to another club because so much has gone on at the Tigers. He needs to go somewhere else to really get a fresh start and start to play good football. But as I said before, he's finding it. I haven't seen him play better than he has in the last month. And so the football side of things is not really the problem. So Matty, I'm not sure what is going on behind the scenes for him to make this decision.
Jack Whiten's leaving the Canberra Raiders. Could you see a connection there?
With him going to Canberra, outside chance, Matty. Yeah, possibly. But I'd say Knights, 1 is likelihood, 2 Dogs, maybe 3 Raiders.
And what about...
Maybe Dragons is 4.
What about if we put a number 9 on the back of Luke Brooks then? Does it become a different scenario?
Playing dummy half? No, I wouldn't play him there. No, you wouldn't take him. Look, on the sort of money that he'd be on, like the Knights wouldn't take him to Newcastle to play 9. No, I don't see that. I don't see him as a 9 anyway.
Brooksy has informed the Tigers he plans to leave the West Tigers at the end of the season. Brooks had a 2-year extension on the table from the club, but informed Benji Marshall on Sunday he would not be taking up the deal. Brooks has played over 200 games for the Tigers, was named the 2018 Dally M Halfback of the Year, but he's also never played finals footy. Thoughts on this whole situation, Smithy?
Yeah, it hasn't been working for Brooksy, has it, for the last couple of years, and he just seems like he hasn't, been at his best for quite some time. So I think it's best for both parties that Brooksy's made this decision. I feel as though he's still a very good player, one of the best halves in our game when he's playing his style of footy and when he's at his best. The question though now is where will he end up, and what club will be best suited for him to go to? I guess.
Mate. Look, I can understand the Tigers' contingent of fans that are like, okay, we have been paying a substantial amount of money, and we understand that the contract is substantially less, so you're taking a massive pay cut. And he has hit good form, obviously did his hamstring. So I can understand Tigers fans being a bit like, mate, could you repay the favour after all these years that we have paid you so much money? But at the same time, from Brooks's side, it's kind of like sometimes you just need to break a relationship up and think about him. Look, it's hard to say that because he got paid so much money over this period of time. But from a personal perspective, let's just say you take money out of it and you go from a personal perspective, what's best for Brooks? Is it to be the whipping boy of the Tigers for the next 2 or 3 years, or is it a fresh start at a new club where he won't be the main guy?
Yeah, and that's the point I was making before, is that he doesn't look like he's enjoying his football right now. Hasn't been for quite some time, and that's just my personal opinion by viewing him on the field. And he's come up with some great games of footy, particularly over the last month. I think he's played some wonderful football, but consistently over the last couple of seasons, you could just see that he doesn't look like himself, like we've seen in that year where he was voted or announced as the Dally M half of the year in 2018. Where he he burst on the scene as a young man. So I think in a situation like that, it's best for both parties. I believe. Yeah. It's the best thing for Luke Brooks to move on and find another place where he's going to be happy and find his best football, and for the West Tigers also, they then get to go, right, okay, the Luke Brooks era is over. We find a half that comes in and wants to be here and wants to make a difference and is happy playing for the West Tigers and playing in our system.
Yeah, it's the tough thing is he's hit good form this last month.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden you go, oh, maybe he could be part of the rebuild. But,
Yeah.
mate, I think that so much has happened. Just part ways, build again. The problem is, though, it does put Tigers back a substantial, like if the plan that they have in place for the next couple of years, it almost puts them back at zero because there's no sevens on the market really at this stage.
Yeah,
And
well, there's a little bit of talk, wasn't there, about maybe trying to poach Ben Hunt.
yes.
That's
And-
what has been reported.
But I mean, would Ben Hunt go from one rebuilding club to another rebuilding club? Maybe.
Well, mate, if there's a fair bit of cash involved, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, fair,
You know?
fair.
Well, because I think Ben Hunt, he's a realistic guy. Like he understands that he's probably only got 2 or 3 seasons left. If there's an opportunity to get paid well for your services, then why not? You'd have to at least consider it.
Oh, for sure. Now with Brooksy, where could he play in 2024? You got the Raiders, Dolphins, Dogs, Dragons, Knights. These are players. I mean, he could go anywhere. He could be a 14 at other clubs, but I actually think that Raiders might be a good fit for him.
Yeah, right.
And you play him at 6. And you get
And part, and mate, part of that move too would be, would it be a good move for Brooksy to be at a club outside of Sydney?
Yeah.
Like that might be a consideration as well. If you look at those other teams that might be on the table, like a Bulldogs, and in particular a Dragons, they are 2 clubs with a lot of spotlight on them. Around their performances, their position on the ladder, what they're doing with their football, particularly, as I said, particularly the Dragons. We've seen this year, how much, is magnified around their football club and the reporting and whatnot. Is that part of that transition out of West Tigers that Luke Brooks is looking for? He wants a place to play where there's a little less spotlight on him, where he can just worry about his football. I think the Canberra Raiders that would certainly tick that box.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, because the other side, you've got the Knights and partnering with Jackson Hastings, which I do like. You put him at 6, but you've got like the Knights, the history with Joey at 7. There were comparisons early in his career to Joey, just with his physique and kind of the way he played. Obviously, he didn't have the career Joey's had. But there would be probably a lot of scrutiny at the Knights. Not as much as a Sydney club, but I think there'd probably be a fair bit due to the history of that 7 jersey, even though he'd be playing 6.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, mate. And again, like die-hard footy town as well. So I guess stepping into that 7 famous 7 Newcastle jersey would bring a little bit of pressure. But yeah, well, after you said the Canberra Raiders, and I'm looking at it here, it makes a lot of sense for him. Dolphins, don't know. I think O'Sullivan, maybe their long-term thoughts there in the halves with Isaiah Katoa. Of course, they've still got Anthony Milford there as well, so I think they're sort of covered for the next little bit. But certainly Isaiah Katoa, like a young man, has he turned 20 yet?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he's been super impressive this year. He's got such a long career ahead of him. Touch wood that he stays healthy and has no serious injuries that keep him out of the game for a long period of time. And as I said, they've got Sean O'Sullivan there as well. He's battling injury at the moment, but I think those 2 guys still very much in the early stages of their career that they could stay on and be long-term halves partners for the Dolphins. So maybe that's not the place for Brooksy. Canberra Raiders, mate, that's looking like a possibility to me.
Oh, mate, I think Canberra's a perfect fit because Fogarty complements him. Fogarty is just a very structured 7, gets around the park, and it just releases Brooksy to be, free. And what is Brooksy's best part of his game? It's his running game. And it just alleviates pressure. Now, Bulldogs have been put on the list, but I just don't think that he complements Matty Burton. I think Bulldogs are already struggling at the moment with the Burton-Oluwapu. I think they're playing 2 6s rather than a 7 and a 6. I don't think Burton's a 7. I think he's an incredible 6. Oluwapu, I think he's a 6 or maybe even a 13 if he gets bigger. So I don't know if that would complement each other. But yeah, for me, Raiders, it would fit perfectly. Out of the spotlight, Ricky Stewart protects his players when he's, on his side. He protects their players,
Absolutely.
Beyond any other coach to a degree. On top of that, he could learn a lot from Ricky as a half.
Yeah.
So I think Raiders would be a great spot for him to land. Let's get to some texts here before we head to a break. Goat and Bloke. As a Tigers supporter, I don't begrudge Brooks leaving. He stayed loyal when Tedesco, Moses and Woods walked. Plus, the way our fans treat him, I'm surprised he didn't leave earlier. From the Mo. Yeah, look, there's probably a large sentiment from the Tigers fans of, watching how he does get treated, because he gets absolutely smashed whenever they struggle. It would have been tough. Got some more text here. I'm a Tigers fan and love Brooks. I really hope wherever he goes, he kills it. My fellow Tigers fans can shut up and stop bagging him. Yeah, so, it does look like there's a lot of sentiment from Tigers fans of almost just hoping he goes okay.
Wanting to go on. Yeah, that's great. It's great support for their 7, and they just want him to go out and find his best football again, that's great to hear from some Tigers supporters.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another text. I don't think Brooks owes the Tigers anything. He was the one player that stuck around when Teddy Moses left. If he wants to leave, good luck to him. Yeah, wow. That's actually really heartening to see, footy fans being very, supportive of a player that may leave. Usually the narrative is, fans are tough on players that leave, but every text here has been, mate, Brooksy, go and do your thing and good luck. That's really good to hear.
And he stuck with them, as the listener said. He stuck with them through the tough times. He didn't jump ship when he maybe had the chance early to do it. He stuck with them, and I know he was being paid well. We're not denying that or hiding that fact, but he chose to stay when possibly he could have left earlier. But it's come to a stage now where I think that decision has been made, where he thinks that, well, my time's done here. It's best that I move on.
And you look, plenty of clubs would have been interested. 2018 Dally M half is not an easy thing to win. There would have been plenty of clubs interested.